Yesterday, the commander-in-chief signed 3 executive orders, including scrapping the U.S.'s involvement from the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the TPP trade deal. He also promised to cut regulations by, get this, 75%. Want to bring in FedEx Corporation's founder and CEO, Fred Smith. And Fred, it is really good to see you this morning.
And you.
Thank you so much for joining us. And what I love about FedEx and your story is you're a founder. You care deeply about this business and have been able to really grow this business for shareholders, for employees, create jobs. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Fred, let me ask you about trade, because I want to ask you about business this morning, but we are having a very fiery debate this morning about the Trans-Pacific Partnership. You have been for the TPP for a long time. Your thoughts on yesterday's executive action?
Well, I think, Maria, the main thing to focus on is trade's what's made America great. About 40 million Americans, including lots and lots of FedEx folks, make their job in trade. 40 million Americans. About 27% of our entire economy is related to trade. 95% of the world's consumers aren't in the United States. They're elsewhere around the world. 80% of the purchasing power. So the United States being cut off from trade would be like trying to breathe without oxygen. It's an essential part of our economy. I think the decision to pull out of TPP is unfortunate because the real beneficiary of that is China. And China has been very mercantilist, very protectionist. They've engaged in industrial policy to the disadvantage of American and European countries. But the real opportunity is to get China to take down their barriers for American goods, because the countries we have a free trade agreement with, which are 20, we actually have a surplus, which seems to be what President Trump is focusing on the most.
To be fair, President Trump is saying that he's not against trade.
I agree.
He wants trade, obviously. I mean, a majority of the world's purchasing power, 80% of the world's purchasing power, you've said in the past, lies outside the United States. So I think that what he's trying to communicate, and what Peter Navarro communicated this morning on our program, is they want fair trade.
I agree.
So taking the U.S. out of TPP and beginning these new bilateral deals with other countries, can that create the trade you're looking for?
Well, as I mentioned a moment ago, the countries we have free trade agreements with, there are 20 of them, we actually have a trade surplus. And I should point out, everybody focuses on manufacturing, but we have a trade surplus as a nation in trade services, including the services that the 496,000 folks that make their living at FedEx are involved in. So it's a very arcane subject. And the problem is the benefits of trade are very diffuse. The average American family gets about $13,000 worth of benefit from trade. A third of our crops planted in the United States are exported. So it's not just manufacturers that constitutes trade. It's services, agriculture, and manufacturing, and about a quarter of all of our manufactured goods go to foreign countries. And we have an enormous export economy. Again, it's about 12% of our GDP, 8.5% goods, 4% services. So it's not quite so simple. The problem with having a free trade, a bilateral agreement, it's wonderful, but trade doesn't happen just bilaterally. It happens multilaterally. Your sister publication here at Fox Business, the Wall Street Journal, on November the 10th, noted that the average automobile produced in North America that has both Mexican and American components crosses the border 7 times. So a lot of what's constituted as trade is actually American supply chains moving from one point or another. So it's not quite as simplistic as a lot of people think it is.
I think this is a really important point that you make in terms of the car, because so many auto parts are made from different places around the world.
Absolutely.
So how do you communicate or explain to the American worker that it's not a foreigner taking your job just because we've got these open borders in terms of trade?
Well, again, the benefits of trade are diffuse. They're spread among many people. The pain is localized. That's really the problem. When you lose a plant in New Hampshire and it goes to South Carolina, everybody's okay with that. And that's basically the history of the 19th century in the United States. But when that factory goes abroad and produces good products that come back in the United States, that creates a political issue. So the real benefit of trade is derived from opening up markets, and as the President and Wilbur Ross and Peter Navarro and Robert Lighthizer, who are the three most important trade people, have repeatedly said, what we want is free trade. So what we should do is
fair trade.
And fair trade.
Right.
And China has been very protectionist and mercantilist. They've involved themselves in industrial espionage and cyber warfare, and we need to try to stop those things and get the Chinese to open up their 1.3 billion person market, not cut them off. We have the opportunity to sell huge amounts of goods into China. Jack Ma was in the United States the other day making that point about the e-commerce market, which is going to grow from $2 to $4 trillion. Well, there are a lot of consumers in China that American manufacturers can serve, but we don't want to involve ourselves in protectionism. We need to open up markets, not cut them off.
Yeah,